Hello, journalers and friends. Welcome to Pages in Process. Hello there, fellow sojourners, journalers, those of you who are figuring out how to be a person in this messy world and want to get to know yourselves. Pages in Process has been a practice of mine, which has developed from wanting to share the daily journaling pages that I've been writing for about 8 years. And a lot of beautiful content started coming out of it. And they just also kept saying, these pages are not just for you, share them online. So part of my being here is doing that. And also part of my being here is about connecting a little bit more to my process, like where I'm at, how I've been, where I'm at, where I'm headed, and wanting to have like a way that I consciously check in and feeling that my friends, my therapists, etc., were not quite working for me. And I haven't found a group of folks that felt like they were meeting my needs to kind of show up on a regular basis to just kind of touch base on how things are. And a lot of this practice actually also started because I had another project that I was having a really hard time showing up for. And I like needed to unpack that and I needed to talk about it. And I needed it to be seen what it was that I was going through by myself and by others as well. And it's unearthed like a whole complex experience of realizing that just I had a lot of internalized spiritual supremacy, being a very witchy woman and being really afraid of both myself or revealing aspects of my practices or my beliefs or what I experience in the kind of unseen aspects of things, partially of which I've studied and practiced and kind of honed that through either performing arts practices that have their roots tied to that, or through just studying with practitioners who practice leaning into intuition and sensing and reading, whether that's magical tools or reading energy patterns. And as a massage therapist, I always also read sort of like body mechanics. So there's a lot of content that I'm taking a look at that most people, it's not that it's not available for them to see. Sorry for the noise. I'm just in my living room in Los Angeles, but that it also is not that it's just not that it's not available for others to see, just that a lot of people don't pay attention or haven't been trained, and it takes an awareness and practice. So I have both like a keen, intuitive, natural awareness that I think a lot of us are born with as kids, and often it's cultured out of us. And also, I was lucky enough to grow up in a household of parents who were also artists and into alternative ways of looking at the world and healing and different modalities. And we always had very diverse community, which has been really wonderful. So now that we're having a lot of public conversations in the world about oppression and racism and things like that, I've noticed that a lot of those conversations, and me being also I'm half Japanese, is I've also encountered a fair degree of racism from time to time as well. But even more so than that, even though that's exhausting, it's more clear, I think. For me, though, what I have had a hard time with navigating has been not the racism, not the sexism, though those are complex and also challenging, but really the spiritual side of things. And it's hard for me to talk about. And there's this term, the witch wound, or healing the witch wound, which a wonderful woman named Kimberly Jones has coined and is now being welcomed and sort of held by a lot of different women, because it strikes or people or bodies, right? It strikes a chord with a lot of us that live in magical bodies. And a lot of us have very real fears of speaking, a very real fears of being seen. Some of us also really desire to speak and be seen. And that might manifest with different types of roles. Me as a performing artist, part of me, my invitational access point into the performing arts has actually been because of the spiritual components that I would see and want to touch into, like in certain moments where the performances are like you can feel something in them. And I realized later that, like, from studying a lot of different spiritual practices and intimacy building, connection, sort of more Taoist or tantric kind of ways of engaging with polarity practices and creative energy that way, that what I was looking for was really a spiritual experience. And I was looking through the performing arts, because that's where I saw the kind of spiritual experience that I was drawn to, which does have its roots in sort of animist, pre-organized religion experiences of why we tell stories, why we gather, why we move, why we sing, why we shake out our experiences of trauma as animals so that we can move through something or make sense of something by telling stories and contextualizing or housing something, so that we have a little bit of a compartmentalization in a maybe healthy way to help us have some sort of meaning making out of something that has been otherwise just really hard or potentially not healthy to have lived through. So I'm learning to speak and continue speaking while also becoming direct without being so forceful, and being clear without feeling so angry. And this is a big journey of mine. This is where I'm at right now in my practice and my journey and my process. And so I share a little bit with you just about where I'm at, read some pages, maybe tell you about some resources that I have. I'm also bridging the gap, I think, a little bit with my project Self-Care for Performers, which is what this one is kind of spurred out of. And what was really lovely is that because I've been doing these practices on Patreon for this practice, Pages and Process, of sitting down and journaling with you, and learning how to feel safe in an intimate setting where it doesn't feel like I have to do anything, but I can invite you into space and I can talk about things. And, I mean, along the way, because it's a different way of leading and guiding that I've experienced before from someone else, it feels more just like connected, attuned, and more like there's no pressure on me, there's no pressure on you. It's just kind of like sharing space and agreeing to be in connection with one another. That's what I've needed. That's how I've been building my resiliency to hopefully show up a little bit more of service down the line. But part of my being of service has to feel like I'm not being of service. Like there's something for me about the way that feels best for me to be in the world, where if I'm like just sharing and showing and it's like not a big deal, then like I'm happy to engage. I love being a part of stuff. I love chatting about stuff. I'm totally down to talk about what works, what didn't work, what you would need more of, and all of that stuff. But when it feels like I'm supposed to have everything together and I'm supposed to present a thing and we're supposed to begin and middle and end, and I do that more often than I'd like to admit, or not admit, but I do that because it also is a helpful tool. It's a helpful way to be in the world. It's a helpful way to approach things, and it really helps orient ourselves in our practice. So here I go. I feel like I have a lot of like aspects of my practice and aspects of myself that they feel like they're going in different directions. And I don't know if you have that too, but it can be confusing and challenging. And if as long as they're not like warring within, that takes different tools. But if they're going in opposite directions, I find that sometimes if you can create a broader perspective around them to kind of hold space for like, what if both are true? What if both can be um, equal needs that I'm experiencing? I both need to not have to feel like I'm trying so hard. And maybe you feel that way too. In this hustle culture we have, in the grind of it all, there's such a, I don't know if you can hear that outside. Sorry. Living in Hollywood, it gets loud outside. I'm just filming in my living room. So bear with me with the ambient sounds. Um, anyways, I don't know where I was. I feel like I've talked myself into a bit of a loop, but being with multiple, I'm going to actually pause. That's distracting me. Okay, we're back. And we're going to let go of what I was talking about before. And I'm just going to read you some pages from yesterday, which was November 5th, from where I'm at, from where I'm coming to you from. November 5th, 2021. I am present to my own self and heart. There is a new part of my psyche that stepped forward today. A journey home and way of being, becoming that shows a tender spot and way of connecting to craft. You don't own the part of yourself that curates a sometimes something. For sure, there is a watery way of moving home, a weathery warmth for how you play and stay the course with the part of you that pleads. You are learning how not to run away from your own needs. A resource in development in sharing some form of something that shadows your way home. Connecting to the content you create allows some form of measured success to meet and match the words and weather of your own system and conscious ways forward. Surrender to the love of your heart, and you'll find your way already home in your experience. You know this. You recognize the shift in some form of gathering matches the show and care of how you meet yourself, connecting to your heart. We are a long lost consumer of time and resources. You measure your stance and find you've lost your follow through. So let go and trust your firm footing speaks for, and so let go and trust. But I read that again. I'm going to pause. I'm going to unpack a little bit. Yesterday was hard. Yesterday, I spent most of the day in like deep, dark internal process. There's a part of me at the beginning, I talk about how there was a new part of my psyche that stepped forward today. So what I do when there's like a part of me that it feels like it can't keep up with or is in opposition to another part of me, sort of like we were talking earlier about those two different parts that have different opinions. So I have this very like sad, depressive, melancholy, hypo-vigilant experience of self, and which mirrors a lot of my early childhood caregiving experiences with one of my my primary caregivers. And there is this very dark, low, depressive state and no capacity to get out of it, barely able to get up and just take care of oneself, let alone another person, me as a child, or other projects such as all of my many, many projects. So, which have sort of become kind of like children to me. I'm not a biological mother, but I do tend to my projects and my creative process, and at some times, you know, my students as well, in a very nurturing, from a very nurturing space. So it's not the same, but there is, but there are similarities and there are qualities of caring that one can consciously employ and choose to step into from a place of being a participant in the phase of the mother, right? You have your maiden phase as a woman, your mother phase, and then your crone phase, right? And so for those of us who aren't having biological children, there's still a mother phase, and there's still aspects of that archetype or that life phase that that are going to be different. And that's where I've sort of been at, is recognizing the part of me that is the mother had the experience of not feeling like I have capacity to participate, that I don't want this, that it's too much, that I don't have the resources, and I'm tired and I need to be quiet. And so there is a part of me yesterday that was very clear about that. Another part that was like, but you're abandoning me. I need to be able to do stuff. I need you to be here with me. And then I started thinking about how, like, you know, when we're recovering from codependency, if that's you, most of us are. So no shade. Like, and I'm there too. For those of us who are consciously choosing to recover from codependency, there's a lot of like recognition of like, oh, am I looking somewhere to get my needs met that's not going to be able to meet my needs? And I had that moment with that aspect of myself where I was like, I'm looking to this part of myself that's tired and run down and like can't. And I want that part of me to get better and wake up and then like lead the charge and be the planner and be the space holder and be the directional focus. And it does not have the capacity. So I was like, you know, like, do I need a boundary there? Do I need to set a boundary and like let that connection go? And the side of me that was like, I don't want you here and I'm tired, was like, please do that. Please, I would love for you to set a boundary with me because I'm tired. I want to rest. I want to go back into the subterranean aspects of Marissa's psyche and just go to sleep in the darkness. And so I was like, okay, so we started doing that, but there was like a screaming, that like a metaphoric screaming, or an aspect of my inner life that was like resistant, that there was this coming forward of, and I'm like, okay, let's get curious. What's that inner part? And so inner parts therapy is a specific kind of therapeutic experience. I'm not trained in it. I just know the theory behind it. And I'm an artist who works with different aspects of myself in order to be a performing artist. So I'm sort of like bridging philosophy and theory with my personal practice. And this is not like I'm not a psychologist, just letting you know. And I may reference inner parts or inner family systems and whatnot. But if you want to know more about those exact systems and how they work in more of like a mental health setting, then go for it. This is how I'm using it. I'm using it for my mental health, and I'm using it also for creative expression. And so there's kind of a bridge between the two that I like to roll with. And so if that works for you, great. You're in the right space. So I always like to qualify different things. I feel like as a massage therapist and as a dance teacher, so much of my life has been like, I felt like I'm supposed to know so much and other people are like in my hands. And while I do have like a lot of knowledge and I do study a lot, and I would like wrap myself in all of these complex molds of like perfectionism, where I was terrified that I was going to inadvertently hurt someone because of different things. And have I? Maybe I have. And we can't always know. And we also can only do our best. And, you know, there's a degree between like, be conscious about how you're showing up, and also like being so tender and scared that you're going to hurt something or someone that you stop living, right? And I've definitely been in that latter part of things. And I'm working to build a sort of perspective or understanding or way of communicating that allows me to trust and know that like I'm building from a place of integrity. I'm not trying to change someone or something, but also I am trying to change my life and change the way I'm showing up in it to get different results, because I have been deeply unhappy. And And I want a different way of moving through space. So anyways, that's what I'm trying to communicate. A lot of what it is that I feel I get frustrated with is, yes, my inner parts, but also community. There are some people I think that have a gift of like trusting that community is going to be safe for them, and they're going to find love and belonging, or at least they project that. And that's certainly not been me. I've always been really afraid of a lot of variety of connections when there's many people all at once. I do really good with just about anybody one-on-one or in small groups of like 3 for the most part. Not always. I mean, there's exceptions, but for the most part, like I can navigate that. But when I get in crowds of people, my social anxiety gets going a lot. I have a lot of tools from the performing arts where I bypass that social anxiety and I breathe, or I like calm myself and work with self-regulation tools, and like I can get through, and I can actually, and sometimes I can feel great doing it. So there's definitely ways that I've been able to shift my experience of being in connection with groups of people. And I've started to notice that the more I do that, the more I notice other people in like moments of social anxiety that I wouldn't have noticed before because I was in social anxiety. So I can be a little more like kind of forgiving or discerning or like invitational or comforting, I hope, to people who I can like, once you've lived through something, you can oftentimes see a similar pattern in someone else. We're not always right. Sometimes we misread, but there are like telltale signs and like cues that you're like, oh, I know how that feels. I bet they're feeling that way. Maybe it has nothing to do with what you think it does, but you can see something in their body responding a certain way, and your attunement goes, that reminds me of something, right? So there's often connections that we make. Okay, coming back. Oh, point being, all over the place today. I feel a little scattered. I've been doing a lot of work with my brain. So part of coming back to that part of myself that was coming forward. So I had that part that was like, I want to go to bed. And the other part that was like, we need to work on our projects. Please don't leave me alone. Like I need a partner and I need to be taken care of. And for some reason that part of me was like, and you have to do it. And that part of me was like, no. It's like, okay, let's respect the boundary of the no, because I'm learning how to respect boundaries in myself by learning how to identify and qualify boundaries interpersonally with others. I can now notice that, oh, there are ways in which I haven't been honoring boundaries internally either. Like, okay, let's honor that boundary. That's a boundary. We honor the boundaries. And then there was this space that this like screaming kind of experience was coming from that I started to mention. And that was like, it was like my brain. It was like my brain wanting, it felt like it wanted to cave in on itself. And it was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do what it is I'm doing. And it was like flooded and too much information. And like, won't you help me? Won't you please help me try to figure out what to do with all of this content? There's so much. And then there was the other part that was like, you're leaving me alone. I was like, well, I'm going to sleep. I have a boundary. Okay, cool. Well, that part was connected to this brain spot. So we let the part that was tired go. This brain spot now is like individuated from that other part that was lethargic and is activated. And so this other part was like, it kind of crumbled and was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was what was going on. And then it got so scared and sad. And was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you. Oh my gosh, I can't do this. Like, I feel left alone. I needed help. And now I see that now this needs help. And I don't know how to help if I need help. And this person or aspect of my psyche, right, is in so much need. Like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And it was just like, and it just asked, like, I need another part of Marissa psyche to come forward, right? Because we've boundaried this one off. It's like, I need another part. I need a different part. I need a new part. Will you please come forward? And so the part of me that was aware of all of this was like, no, I guess that's me. Right. So the part of me that was aware of all of this was like, okay, so here I am. What do we need? It sounds like you're overwhelmed. You're flooded, need a way through. We need to help brain make sense of all of the like myriad of thoughts that are washing through and like how to organize them, how to maybe clear out some space from some of them. And then this other part felt like it didn't have the tools or resources to know how to move forward. It needed some guidance. So this other part of me is now stepping into that mother role, right? The one that couldn't do anything before, right? So now what's great, we can put that one to rest, to bed, to integrate into the shadow and love and have compassion for all of the mothers out there who are not able to have the nervous system resilience to be able to tend to and take care of their children, right? Because that is a real, very real thing that many of us live through, or many of us are experiencing and our children are living through on either side. And it's not an easy thing on any end, whether you're the mother or whether you're the child, to have to go through an experience like that, right? So honoring that, I now was able to access a different part of my psyche that was like, I have capacity. Okay, I have capacity. Part of me wants to run away, right? Part of me wants to go into hypervigilance and be like, this is too much. I'm going to take off. But enough of me feels like, in that aspect of my psyche, feels like it has tools to regulate my anxiety, to regulate my fear of attachment. Because I have an attachment theory of disorganized attachment, where I switch between the different styles of attachment, where like I feel like I need more, and with some anxious attachment, and I feel like it's too much with some avoidant attachment, and I go back and forth between the two. But I also have a fair amount of secure, and so my secure attachment was like, okay, I can feel I'm predominantly secure here. Part of me feels a little bit avoidant, but I feel like there's enough security where we can work with that, and I can stay and I can help guide the experience today. So a lot of it was, okay, this other part that was like trying to help the part that was so tired, that part had created a lot of really great tools to help support this other aspect when it was being shut down and overwhelmed by the brain, right? And so because we have had that experience, because part of the experience is that the brain is what's the taxing experience for any part of me, it seems like, that's dealing with something. A lot of the tools that this other part of me had developed, I was now able to, as this new conscious part of me, walk myself through and like say, look, you've done a good job. We already have a lot of the tools. I know you're freaking out right now. You feel like you don't know what to do. And let's do some of the things that you've already learned, which is go lay down under your weighted blanket, listen to a very specific podcast that soothes your soul, called Sacred Spoke, which I absolutely love. I highly recommend it. I listen to it on Spotify. And yeah, and that I don't know what else to say about that. So we were able to walk through that and just kind of give myself permission to rest again, because that was taxing. That part of me was like, okay, so now we're going to go. So now we're going to go do work. And I was like, no. We will eventually. But first, brain is freaking out and you are freaking out. And we just created a boundary with a part of ourselves that used to be really, really much a part of the dynamic. So let's give space for the transition where we're allowing that space to rest, and we're aware of what's going on with you guys. And this is a new dynamic. So let's just integrate the fact that that's a lot of change right now. And so we had a rest day. We slept for most of the day. We allowed that to be okay. We worked a little bit here and there, like when inspired and when things felt okay. I did some work on my project Self Care for Performers, which was fantastic. And I'm going to be creating a video for that soon and hopefully launching like an online community that may be similar but different to what I do with my pages and process on Patreon. Um, and just kind of connecting to what feels right. So anyways, back to my pages. This is a long one. If you're here and you're listening to this, like, cool. Part of me is like, who wants to listen to this? This is just me like going off about my personal stuff. But it's just like needs to come out. It needs to be shared. So I'm just going to share it and just trust that if you find this, you need it. And if you carry on your way, then you carry on your way. And it's like, not a big deal, not a big deal, not a big deal. I'm just sharing. And if it resonates, it resonates. And if you need it, you need it. And if it doesn't, then at any time you can just click off or pause or skip or any of that. And that there's something about that feels really good to me, like especially because I think I'm so worried about people's boundaries. I'm like, am I oversharing? Is this too much? I'm like, oh well, maybe. And does it feel like it needs to come through me? Is it something that I want to be sharing? And do the people on the receiving end recognize that they have the capacity, the ability to also set their own boundaries of focus and interest and carry on in a different direction if that feels right to them? And so so you have permission for that. And if you want to stay, like, cool. How weird. I mean, not weird. I'm not saying you're weird, but like it feels weird to just share and have maybe some people want to watch the whole thing. Anyways. They say when you go macro, it becomes micro. When you talk about the whole big picture, it resonates with the little things. And when you go like super micro, like really delve into like the core of the stuff, it becomes macro and resonates a lot with others as well. So perhaps that's us. Okay, here we go. Surrender to the love of your heart and you'll find your way already home in your experience. Here I am. You know this, you recognize the shift and some form of gathering matches, and some form of gathering matches the show and care of how you meet yourself. Connecting to yourself, connecting to your heart. We are a long lost consumer of time and resources. That's an odd statement to me. We are a long lost consumer of time and resources. It feels like long lost love, like long lost siblings, right? This long lost reunited, but like consumer feels so like, I don't know, I have maybe judgments of the word consumer. What do we consume? What do we eat? What are we nourishing ourselves with? To kind of flip that word around a little bit of time. So how are we feeding our time and resources? How are we consuming? How are we engaging with? How are we nourishing ourselves with the resources we have available with the time and experiences? So you measure your stance and find you've lost your follow through. So let go and trust. Let go and trust. That's what I'm doing here today. Just letting go, and I'm just letting going. Just letting going. I'm just letting go, and I'm just going to trust. I love stream of consciousness. So much of what I do is about like, let it happen, see what happens. Because I'm so tired of the other way of being. I'm just so tired of it. Okay. Your firm footing speaks forward a kind of hush over your own soothing. Swallow your pride and walk slowly down the water hole. You cannot bypass the aspect of your life most longing to be lived. Oh, that makes me want to cry. Why does that make me want to cry? I'm going to read that again because I just got chills. I needed that. Maybe you do too. Maybe not. I don't know, but I do. So I'm going to read it again. Your firm footing speaks forward a kind of hush for your own soothing. Swallow your pride and walk slowly down the water hole. You cannot bypass the aspect of your life most longing to be lived. And then I go, shrink, shrink, hide it, hide it. The part that's most longing to be lived. I'm willing to, but I also recognize that like there's a resistance to it. I think coming back to that witch wound in part, and then also just, adverse past experiences and or just being in a society that really likes you to have, here are the 3 steps to success, here are 3 quick tips and hacks to XYZ. I'm like, I don't function that way and I don't want to. So that's why I'm here doing it this way. Because this is the life that most wants to be lived through me. Okay. You sugarcoat your own love and present the mask for keeping. The lily-livered livestock will be slaughtered and your head left on the block. Know that, know that, know that. That's violent. What is that? You sugarcoat your own love and present the mask for keeping, which I have been doing. I've been like, here is a sugar-coated version of myself, and I'm going to wrap it in branding. Yeah, marketing and branding, strategic marketing and branding. I've been compartmentalizing myself and trying to position myself in the market and whatnot, but really just like, who is it I feel comfortable talking to? The lily-livered livestock will be slaughtered and your head left on the block. The lily-livered livestock. So the livestock, I think of like lily-livered. They say like that feels like a cowboy, you lily-livered the coward kind of thing. So it's like a judgment of like toxic masculinity towards someone who's like, I don't want to die right now. I don't want to do this kind of fight. I don't want to show up in this. Livestock, what toxic kind of what I think of it. Well, I mean, there's different ways to think about livestock, but like livestock, the word itself, it's not like these are our animals that we tend to, but they are animals that people tend to. But also there's a lot of really terrible kinds of farming that happens with livestock in our world, in our culture, and atrocious ways that they are being treated. And so I'm aware of that as well, for sure. And your head will be left on the block. Like, so it's like, perhaps I am the lily-livered livestock. I am the thing that has been tended and pushed around and treated poorly. Maybe you have too. I think we all have been in some form or fashion. And I don't want to fight, and I don't want to do it the other way. And my head will be left on the block. So know that, know that, know that. Maybe speaking these words, letting them be true, letting them come out. There are going to be people who are going to go for the jugular. And, in piecemeal they have, and in piecemeal I've experienced that already. And in a lot of other ways, I've had such beautiful connections with folks. So I think it's recognizing that in certain circles, my head is on the block, and coming to peace with that in relationship to how it is that I show up in the world, and how it is that I feel safe, and how it is that I can keep moving from a place of integrity without having to feel like I'm hiding all the time. I feel like I'm hiding all the time. Okay. Sure-footed pleasure and treasure casts a way forward into the times I've most wanted to stay home and away. Sure thing, isn't it? You halt not and then say so much more than you realized. It feels like my experience with you right now. Sure-footed pleasure and treasure casts a way forward into the times I've most wanted to stay home and away. And there I have this like agreement with myself. When I show up at Pages in Process, I like make myself feel like I'm at home and away. And you're here, but I'm mostly talking to myself. And if you're here, how lovely. But like, if I can figure out how it is that I'm talking to myself, then I'm doing my work, then I'm doing my job. Sure thing, isn't it? you halt not. So I don't stop and then say so much more than you've realized. I say so much more than I realized I was saying because I feel comfortable enough and I feel private enough. And I feel I've tricked myself enough into thinking that nobody's going to see this. And hopefully those of you who do see this are friendly, kind, loving, resonant people. I don't know who would stay this long if you weren't. Would make no sense to me. So we're gonna go with that's the case. And thank you for being here. And thank you for being someone who is wanting to witness this kind of process, whether that's in yourself or within another, like me. And I would love for you to join me on my Patreon community for Pages in Process. I think I may start to share there some of my embodiment practices too, just for me, and keeping it like maybe Pages in Process is like, this is Marissa's process. She's just sharing her story. And it might be less like writing sessions and journaling prompts. And I might allow those things to be integrated more into self-care for performers again, which is made for performing artists, but is really for anyone who feels like they connect to the work that I do. And allowing self-care for performers to be more where I show up as like a leader, a guide, a teacher. And here, perhaps it's just like, this is my process. This is my practice. You come along for the ride if you want. That is true. Okay. I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to test the waters for the next 3 weeks at least and see how that goes. I might still do some writing sessions here and there, but if I do, they're going to be like just for me. They always kind of have been, really. I've been feeling like I'm supposed to do something else, but I think it's just like, I'm going to do some writing sessions. If you want to come by, I'm going to lead myself and you in and out of them. We can practice together. I will maybe read some afterwards, maybe not, depending on how insular I'm feeling. But I would love for you to share a little bit in the comments in my community if that feels right to you, as like a little space of fellow sojourners that journal or write or practice or do something. And if you'd like to just join me on my wild ride and let me know how it does or doesn't relate to your wild ride. That feels like the direction I'm going to maybe keep heading more and more. If I can let go of I have to do something in order to be valuable thing here in Pages in Process, and then let my teaching be more for self-care for performers. Why does that feel so scary? That feels so scary when things get scary like that, but I also want to smile a lot. That's when I know I should do it, if I can get myself to let myself do it. So we'll see how it goes, but that's the direction I'm headed. For the time being. Okay. Take care. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you be. And thank you for joining me in my little window of Marissa. Okay. Bye.